All right, cool. Oh man. All right. So today we're going to be talking about put requests and delete requests. There have been a lot of stretch problems or a lot of stretch goals on your afternoon projects with put and delete. So there's probably some of you that have gone through making these requests, but we're going to officially learn about them right now. So put and delete, of course, are the edit and delete HTTP requests that we're going to make for different items. We're going to be using the Trinkets app that we love so much. This actually is one of my more favorite projects. So let's go ahead and I'll share this and we'll just jump right into it. By the way, I'm obviously just joking about flexing, but I don't want that joking attitude about flexing to come across with the attitude that flexing is bad. Flexing is a really awesome way to make sure that you are really mastering the subjects. And with the new 9-month length of the program, flexing for a unit or two is actually built into the end of Lambda. So it doesn't even stop you from finishing on time, which is awesome. So I don't want anyone to feel bad if you actually need to flex. Yeah, Brittany, absolutely. Flexing this unit was the best thing I've done at Lambda. I think there's a ton of people that would attest to that. So if you do flex and we get to hang out for another month, that's not a bad thing at all. And I'm sorry if my cavalier attitude about that gave the wrong message. So, all right. We're going to be in Trinkets. So let's jump over here and let's take a look at what is going on with our Trinkets app. Oh, my changes did not save. Well, that's lovely. So if you haven't forked it yet, you can just refresh and fork after this. If you have forked it, go ahead and add this new route, just the item form with the item form component. That should have saved in there, but there we go. Now we've got our add item form. Okay, so there's our item form route. We also need our API spun up. So if you don't have the Trinkets API, let me go grab it for you. I believe we have it on here. Let's see. Yes, good. Okay, here is the Trinkets API. So if you don't have that already, go ahead and clone that to your local machine, run your installs, and get it fired up. And I've got it already saved. Can't spell the day. Guys, Trinkets API. Now that my yarn is on version 1.19.1, it works today. Yay. Okay, I'll give you a minute or two to get the Trinkets API up and running. All right, once you have that up and running, let's go check out localhost. Fingers on the right keys, Dustin. Let's go. Okay, good. This is good. This means that we haven't that the API is actually running. We just haven't given it a correct endpoint to fetch data from. So let's go check out the Trinkets API server. And so there's all of our trinkets. So we should have a get, oh, let's see, I went way too far, at /items. So we should be able to come here, go /items, and there's all of our items. Okay, so if you go to localhost :3333/items, then you should see your data, either raw view, maybe parsed view here, and we're ready to go. So I can go to my shop and, well, should be able to get my items. There we go. Got my items. Perfect. All right, so we need to talk about this real quick. We need to figure out how we're going to set up edit and delete functionality. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a button down here for editing and a button down here for deleting items. So on each item page, there's going to be an edit button and a delete button. But with that being said, we need to understand what how this app is architected. We need to know where the state is being managed, and then we need to, from this component, be able to run those two actions. So let's jump into some drawings here. All right, so we've got our app component, and let's go take a look at app. So our app component has our item state and is passing our items down to different components here. Okay, so if we go back to this page, so our app has some state and is managing state for items. Then we've got our different routes. We've got our home. We've got our list. We've got this page, our item page, item list, or our item page. We even have our update form or our add form. So here inside item, we're going to have our two buttons. And this is going to be to edit and delete. So when we run either of these actions, we want to update our items data, right? So we need to update items state. So we have to think about how we're going to update state from a parent component here. We also need to, for editing, we also need to have a form that allows us to edit an item. So if we build another form out here for updating, if we have another route for updating, then this action when we click the edit button actually isn't going to update our state. It's going to send our item to the form, the item that we clicked on, and then this is going to update state. So you can see this is already getting a little bit complicated here. Making put requests and updating data on the server is one of the more complicated situations that you will face as a developer. Add item, that's easy. All it does is make a post request to the items. It doesn't have to know about any current data. It just adds data to our list. The edit button, this put request that we're going to make, it has to know about which item to edit. It has to be able to update the current state. And then we also need to make sure that our UX flow works well for this situation. So this is what we're going to do today. So let's make our to-do list out here. So the first thing we're going to do is add buttons. Then on click, so the edit on click needs to send item data to update form. And yeah, that should be it for the edit on click. Update form needs to make a put. First, before we make our put request, inside our update form, we need to populate the form with the item data. And then put request to update data. Then we'll take a look at any UX considerations we want to build in for that situation. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to need your help during this today to accomplish all these things. For now, let's see. Let's clear this. And actually, there we go. Hey, come back here. Okay, now we'll clear this. And in here, this will be our list of things. All right, so item number one, let's go add some buttons. So we need to go to item.js, and we're going to add some buttons here below the routes. So we'll say button, and I know we've got classes for these. Okay, so the class for this is going to be MD button. And we're going to have an edit button, and we're going to have a delete button. So add that into your item.js file. And let's click into an item here. And unicorn bowl. Okay, good. Here's our edit and delete buttons. Nice. We've still got all the functionality. Good. All right, so step two. We need to, class name. Thank you. So cool story. In a coming future release of React, you'll be able to do just class. You won't have to type in class name anymore. It's going to be awesome. In fact, it's supported right now. It just gives you a warning. Let's see. It just gives you a warning, invalid DOM property class. Did you mean class name? So it's not even an error. It still gives you the correct classes. But yes, for now, until we get that release, it should be class name. Okay. Edit, click, send item data to update form. Well, first we need an update form, right? So we have an update form component. So let's get some ideas on how we can use this update form to, when we click on this edit button, to send the data from this item to that update form. So what thoughts do you have for that? So let's go in this thread. How are we going to get our data when we click on that edit button to our update form? Use match and value. I like it. We can pass it as props, conditional rendering, a route. Yeah, let's start here. Let's start with our route. Let's go to index.js and let's add a route first of all for our update form. So let's say edit item. And let's just give it a component. Update form is already been imported. Okay, let's go to update or edit item. Edit item. Okay, here's our update form. Now, a couple possibilities came through here. We could conditionally render the form inside our item list. So when we click on edit, we could, instead of rendering all of this, we could render our form, and then we'd have access to our item. We're going to keep it on a route. I like that idea. We're going to keep it on a route. And so with a new route, we can't do conditional rendering. We could pass data down as props, but let's think about that. So let me close this, bring back our drawing. So the component that knows which item I clicked on is item. So if we wanted to take this item that we clicked on and pass it down as props to update, then we'd have to build an extra item and state up here that would be, I don't know, active item or item to update, something like that. Active item. So then we'd pass a callback function down to item to set our active item, and then route to our update form, and this would receive props.activeItem down here. So again, we're working with siblings here. We can't just pass data straight across. If we want to do props, then we have to set up some state in the parent component, pass the setter function down to item, and then when we route to update, that item will be on active item. So that is one way we could do it. The other suggestion we had here is, oh, let's clear this out, match and value. Here, edit item / ID. So Robert and Sheila are kind of going down the same path here. What can we do? How can we accomplish this? Ooh, we could use queries. We're not going to use query strings though right now. Let's go change our route to edit item / ID. So in index.js, I'm going to say edit item / ID. Okay. That takes it away here. So if we go to /1, we'll see our update item. But then what do? We still don't have our item here. We just have an ID. So then what would our next step be? Sheila, tell us our next step, because you already said it. Yeah, we have to pass down items. Good, we'll get to that in a second. Yes, use the ID from props.match to get the data. Robert's 5 steps ahead of us already. Awesome. Okay, so what we've done here is we've set it up so that update item through the URL knows which item we've clicked on. So let's go back to item, and let's add our onClick here on the edit button. So onClick, we're going to, let's see, this is a function, so props.history.push. We're going to push to edit item / and then the ID, right? Well, we need to make this an interpolated string because the ID is on item.id. Okay, so our onClick from our item is going to take us to this page, and in our URL, we're going to have the ID of the item we clicked on. So let's go try it out. Yoga Joe's. This is item 3. Click edit. Nice. Now we're at edit item with that ID. Let's try dinosaur taco holders. ID number 4. Perfect. Okay. This is working. All right. So then we have we've got this algorithm here that's going to find the item that we clicked on from props.item. So we need to change in our route, we need to change the component prop to the render prop and pass down our items. So let's go back to our route, and we're not going to use component here. We're going to use the render prop. We've got an example of the render prop up here. We know that it takes in a function, and that function takes in props, and then we render the component we're trying to render here, and we pass through all of our props. Now we also need items. So let's pass in items, the entire list of items that's being stored here in app.js. So items is going to be items. Now we should be able to look here and see our list of items on props. So update form. We have history, location, and match, and we have items. Okay, so let's go take a look at this that Robert built out. So we want an item inside our component. So let's go to our update form. And okay, we've got an item on state here already with this object being passed in as the initial state. So we don't want to do const new item. Let's try this. Let's say const item to edit, and then we're going to get our items from props, and we're going to find an item. So we'll look at one item at a time, and if item.id equals props.match.params.id. And we're going to use that item. All right, then we can do something like, I don't know, how do we get this item to our state so that it's controlled, so our form is controlled by state and by this change handler. What do you think? We've got our item that we want to edit here. Now we just need it on state. It's a tough one. Yeah, let's try set item. There we go. Let's try that. Set item, item to edit. Uh-oh, got an error here. Let's go to our console. Let's see, where is this error? Look at all those errors. Let's clear the console and refresh. Oh no. Cannot read name of undefined. Okay, so where is this error coming from? Update form 47. So somewhere an object has become undefined and we're trying to read the name property of that object. So let's go to line 47, and that's going to be right here. So when we set our item, to state, somehow the item object became undefined. So let's try this. Let's say console.log item to edit. Pass these ones. Okay, item to edit is undefined. Here we go, undefined, undefined, undefined. Huh, why is item to edit undefined? Why is this find function not finding our item? Yeah, string versus number. So let's go look at this. If I ever have a .map or a .filter or .find, .index of that's not working how I expect it to, I come to the inner function here, and instead of implicitly returning, instead of doing this one-line arrow function, I can add brackets, and just put the return keyword in front of whatever was to the right of the arrow. What this lets me do is console log everything that this algorithm depends on, so I can see where I'm messing up. So I'm going to console log item.id, and I'm going to console log props.match.params.id. So let's clear that, refresh the page, and let's see what console logs we're getting. Ah, we're not getting console logs. We should be getting console logs. Let's see. Item to edit. Let's remove this for a second, because that's what's eventually throwing our error. Okay. So item is coming through undefined because we're comparing, even when it finds the correct item, we're comparing a number to a string. So item.id is a number, and what we get up here in the URL always comes back as a string. Okay, so we gotta make sure we're doing our comparison with the same types here. Okay, so we need to either change this to a string or change this to a number. The easiest way for me that I like to do this is just do an interpolated string here, like that. Now we should be console logging our item. Yes, there we go. There's our dinosaur taco holders. I knew we'd get it. Okay, so we have our item. Now we just need to populate our form. Let's take a quick break first, though, and then we'll come back and populate our form. Let's see if there's any questions. No questions coming through? All right, let's take a break. We'll take a 5-er, and then we'll come populate our form. Okay, come on back. All right, so we're trying to figure out now how to populate this form. So now that we have the correct item, let's try this. Oh no, another error. Let's see. Okay, we're getting the same problem. This is coming from, hold on, let's try it like this. Look at this. We console logged a ton of times, then we get an error saying, too many re-renders, React limits the number of renders to prevent an infinite loop. So we're in an infinite loop situation. Programming is hard. Okay, why are we in an infinite loop situation? What is causing this? What would be causing our infinite loop? Can we use effect and set item so it only does it once? Need use effect? Why though? Why do we need use effect? What about this not being in use effect is causing this to jump into an infinite loop? Yeah, state changes cause re-render. Oh, someone already said it. Nice. Where's that? Oh, down here. Good job, Nicholas. Yeah, we're setting state and it's triggering re-renders. So this is what's happening. Here's our function. We've got some state. We go through these functions here. We console log, then we get to this line here. And we say set item to edit. So we pass an item here and we update our state, which causes a re-render. So we start running through all these again. And we get to this line here and we update our state and we start the process over again. Then we get to this line, we update our state, process happens again and again and again and again and again, right? Okay, so we need to put this in a use effect somehow. So what are we gonna do? Let's add a use effect up here. What are we gonna put inside our use effect? And do we need a dependency array? Use effect with a dependency. Okay, let's do this. We're gonna move this into our use effect because it's only used for setting our item, right? We don't need this anywhere else. So let's move this entire block here, march it up into use effect. All right, now we do need a dependency array. Let's see what this says. React Hooks use effect has missing dependencies props.items and props.match.params.id. Either include them or remove the dependency array. So let's include those, props.items and props.match.params.id. All right, so what this is saying now is if our props.items change, or if props.match.params.id changes, then we'll run through this and we'll set our item to state. Okay, let's go try it. Oh no. Update form 19. This console log is undefined again. Cannot read property name of undefined. We fixed that. Okay, this is the last error to get through, and then this will work. So what could be causing this to be undefined? Any thoughts? Not our initial state. I did. Yep. I planned for all of this. All right, let's try this. We've got our item ID. Let's do this. Let's console log this again. So we're going to wrap this all in brackets, a return. Why did we not like this? Oh, not that in brackets. But the actual function in brackets. Return. Okay, there we go. So above our return, let's console log item.id and props.match.params.id. Okay, remember, this is coming through undefined, so somehow this function isn't working. So I'm just going to take the two things that this depends on and find out why this isn't working. So let's clear this out, refresh the page. Undefined there. Why are we not getting our console logs from this? Why would this not be? So we're getting the undefined from this console log, but we're not getting these console logs. Let's open it up here and see. Console is cleared, undefined. Okay, well, this would come back as undefined, and this would come back as our item ID. So what would cause our item.id to be undefined? Oh, you know what's happening here? This whole thing also depends on props.items, right? That's why we're not getting the these console logs, because props.items is an empty array. And with props.items, with an array, with a .find function on an empty array, it's going to return undefined to this item. So why is props.items undefined? Okay, watch this. I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to go into my edit form from the page. Haha, it worked. And look at this. I've got all my things are being console logged correctly, no problems. The problem comes when I refresh the page here on edit item. That's when I get an empty array and an undefined item. So what's the difference between refreshing my page on edit item and routing to edit item from here? So Travis says when you navigate directly to edit item /x, it doesn't get an item passed into it since we never routed to it. Almost. We could use local storage. Okay, let's think about the flow here. Where is this data coming from? Where are we getting set item? Well, we have to loop through props.items to get our item, right? So let's go find where props.items is coming from. So we're passing in items here, props.items, to our route. That's coming from this right here. Well, items is initialized as an empty array, and then we go fetch that data. So the problem here is what's called a race condition. What happens when we refresh this page is it will run all of this once and set our item to update once before before this axios call runs. So the first time, if we are refreshing the page here, the first time that update item renders, we don't actually have our data yet. However, if we're routing from one of these pages, we have our data, right? Here's our data. So we can route to there and we have our data. So it can populate the form. So we want to be able to refresh this page and still be able to get our item right here. So what we're going to do, we need to give this axios call a chance to complete before we run set item. So what I'm going to do is inside here, I'm going to say if there is no item to edit, or actually let's say if there is an item to edit, then we'll go ahead and run set item. So we're only going to set our state if our data has had a chance to come back and we actually have an item to edit. Now, you can refresh all you want. And there's our data. Phew. All right. Let's look at questions, and then we'll come back and talk about the actual put request. Now that we are able to go from any of our items to our form. All right, is there a reason you could not have made update form JS as a child of item? Wouldn't it have been easier to pass props? The reason that we went with this is, let's bring this back up. So let's think through that situation. If we had item, let's actually draw. So yeah, it would be easy to put our update form here and then pass item down as a prop, right? So let's think about the implications of this. If we were at our item, the update form would not have its own route, so we would be rendering all of this, and then we'd have the form below here. I think someone earlier suggested, Greg suggested doing a conditional render, so we could stay on this. We could stay on this route, and we could conditionally render all of this, and we would have some kind of in here, index.js, we would have some kind of state for this, const is editing, set is editing. And then we could conditionally render our form on this page as well. most of the time you're not gonna see conditionally rendering entire components as often as you will just see their own routes. And just let the component take care of getting the items, getting the data it needs to run it. So we can do all of that. We can handle that here. We can get the item we need. Let's take away some of our console logs and our return. Clean this up a little bit. In fact, we can even do a one-liner if statement here. You don't need curly braces. So there. Now we've just got a few lines of code to get the data that we need. Yes, we could get it from props and just use props for this, but I think this is a little bit cleaner architecture where this is its own item. Also, we now have a, this is called a slug. We now have a deep link URL that I can post this, send it to anybody, and anyone can click on there and get to my edit form with the correct data. So so that's one advantage of making the edit item route is you can deep link to the actual form. So there's some pros and cons for both ways. I think going through this way was a good exercise. See the errors, kind of talk through the architecture. So yeah, I'm glad we went through this way. Why are we using a new update form for updating instead of using the add form that we already have? Good question. So you'll notice that update form, if you take a look at update form, the change handler, all the JSX is pretty much identical to item form. So you could reuse the item form for editing. A couple things you'd have to do is you'd have to, when you route here, you'd have to inform this component whether it was adding a new item or editing an item. I've taught it that way before, and it just gets even more complicated. So what we just built was actually pretty complicated, right? We had to think through a lot of different situations, architect it just right so we could get to this point. So adding the complication of telling a component which situation we're in makes things just more complicated than it needs to be to learn put and delete. But you definitely can do it. And I would challenge anyone who wants to try to build a reusable form that knows whether it's editing or adding and works at both routes. So we would say we would pass in item form here to this route and to this route. And then it would have to know which situation it's in. So yeah, think through that. That's a tough one. How does the form know the information of the item and to auto-load it in the form? Oh, good question. So in update form, we are finding the item that we're trying to edit from the params in the URL from right here. So what's happening is in this .find function, we're looping through all of our items that we've gotten from the server, and we're looking at each item at a time and saying, does this ID match what I have in my URL? And as soon as it finds that item, as soon as this returns truthy, then it stops the loop and it adds this item that it's looking at to item.edit. So we take item.edit and we set it to state. So that's how we find the information for the item. So how do we load it onto the form? Well, when we call set item and pass in our item here, item is controlling our form. So we have an item.name from our list of items. We have an item.description, item.shipping, item.price, all from this item that we found right here. So as soon as we call set item and pass that object to our item state, it's going to update our form with all of that data. How do we do edit function in Redux? If this was Redux, so my forms are going to handle their own state. So I would not do any of this in Redux. I would keep all of this in the component because it all deals with form state. What would happen in Redux is when we click the update button here, right now we're just going to make an axios call directly inside this component. In Redux, we would call an action creator that would use a thunk to make that axios call from there. So all of this again is going to stay in the component, even if we're using Redux. The only thing that this would need from Redux is the action creator for when you click update. What about filtering only the updated item? Yeah, you can filter. I like find for this situation a little better because it will short circuit the loop. In other words, if you have 1,000 items here and you were using filter and you just needed the first item in the array, you would still go through the other 999 items just to get to that one item that you already found on the first iteration. So find will actually, it will find and return the first item that matches this test here, and then it won't continue looping. It'll end the loop right there. So that's why I like find for this situation a little better. Also, the .filter returns an array of objects, not the object itself. So if we used .filter, then we'd have to do @0, which can be a little dangerous. We're still getting our item here. But I'd be very wary of hard coding anything like this off of like a .filter. Okay, great questions. Love it. Let's take a break and we'll come back in 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. A lot of water under the bridge.
Some of the old songs, sir.
Yes, ma'am. bad luck to it.
All right, here we go. Let me give you this poll on Slido. I'm creating it right now, so jump over to Slido and I'll have it up in just a second. Okay, and that is going live with anonymous. You won't be able to see the results, just want to hear from you. How confident would you feel setting up an edit form like this if you were asked to do it in a project this weekend? Just want to gauge where we're at, if we can move on from here, if we want to cover these again. Okay, let's get a few more people voting here so we can get some accurate data. I only know what the data tells me. Okay, so we're hovering right around 5.5. So half of you feel somewhat to very comfortable setting up an item for an edit form like this, and half of you don't feel confident in it, very confident at all in it. So let's just let's walk through the flow one time, and then we'll work on the put request. Okay, poll is down. Let's go ahead and walk through this flow. So again, what we're trying to accomplish here is sending item data to our update form. When we click on this edit button inside our item component, we need to send the item, we need to tell our update form which item we clicked on. Then we also need to find that item that we clicked on out of the items props that we sent down to update. So let's go look at our edit button and see what it's doing. So inside my item.js, we're looking at some item, right, that we found from props, from the params. We click on the edit button, which takes us to, routes us to edit item, to this route here, edit item /ID. So the component, when we route to that, the component that's being rendered here is our update form. So by clicking on our edit button, we're routing to the update form. So now we need to know which item we clicked on and be able to find that data and populate our form based on that data. So let's go to update form. And our form we see here is controlled by our item state. Okay, so when we first route to this component, our item state is set up with this initial item here. So it's got the name, price, it's got all the fields that we need for our form. So our item data is set up with our initial item. On the first render, this effect will run, and anytime props.items changes, and anytime props.match.params.id changes. So if we're at our edit form here, if this ID changes, or if our items from our items array changes, it's going to run this. Okay, so the first time that we run, when we click that button and we route to this page here, we're going to run this code. And what it's going to do is it's going to loop through our items that's being passed down from app. These items here that we've already fetched. It's going to loop through those items and find the item based on the ID up here, the item that we clicked on. Okay, so once we find the item that we clicked on from our list of items, we're going to set our item state, which is controlling our form, with that item. And that will update this form here. So everything that's happening, everything that's making this work happens from, first of all, setting up our route with a dynamic parameter. In our item, routing to the edit form and passing in the ID of the item we click on, And then our edit form, let's maybe separate this out with some spaces here. Our edit form is going to find the item we clicked on based on that dynamic parameter and set that item to state, which will update our form. Okay, hopefully that brings you a little higher on the confidence scale that we just ran. If not, it's a situation that just needs to, you may need to watch the video again. You may need to, you'll get a chance to practice this in your video or in your project this afternoon. If you're still not feeling confident with this whole situation, tomorrow during Q&A we can cover this again. So please let me know if by the end of the day and the end of, by Q&A tomorrow, if you still don't feel confident setting up this kind of edit form. We do have to move on though, so let's go ahead and move on here. And let's jump, well, we can make a new thread. Okay, I'm gonna bring these back together, how I would have them in project. I would maybe keep a space there. All right, so we've got our form here. Now when we click on this button, what's going to happen? Well, we've got an onSubmit for our form that's calling this function here. We've already called prevent default. So now we need to make a request to make a pull request to edit the item. All right, so new thread. How do we make a put request? So red thread, put request. Yeah, we need to know what the endpoint is. We're going to do axios.put. We're going to pass in the URL and the payload. Okay, let's go check out the endpoint. So we're going to go to our server. We're going to find put. Let's see. Okay, here is put. And the endpoint is /item/:ID. Hey, this is something we've seen before, right? We've been dealing with this today. This is a dynamic parameter, just like with React Router. So we need to pass down the ID of the item that we're editing. So we'll come here. Why do I have this up twice? Are they the same? Yeah. All right, so we'll come here. We're going to say axios.put and HTTP ://localhost:/items/ID. Is it items? Yes. /ID. So we need to add our ID here. So it's going to be really similar to this kind of setup with an interpolated string, the URL, and then the item ID. So let's change this to be interpolated. And we'll say item.id. I have a question for you. Our state, our item state, started out like this, and there's no ID on this object. When we call setItem and add our item to edit to item, are we then going to have an ID field? Is this going to work? Answer in the thread right here. Igor says no. Dave says yes. I do not want to get in between a battle between those two great minds. Yes, no, yes, yes. Okay, let's see. I have some auto IDs. Should we give it an ID on select? It's probably written in the server. Yes, because it's automatically assigned one. We need to pass the ID as a param. Okay. Oh, that's a good point. We could just use the param, right? We could just say props.match.params.id. Okay, let's try this. I'm going to comment that out, and I'm going to console log our item. All right, so here I am. We're going to click update. Let's look at our item. Ah, our item does have an ID when we click on it. The reason for that is, as Mark told us here, when we call set item, we're setting the entire item object to state. And it doesn't care what it used to be. It doesn't care about this old shape. It's going to set the entire item to state, which has an ID. It's got all the other fields as well, but it also has an ID. So we are okay to do this. So we say .then. We're going to console log the response. Catch console log error.response. That is Axios's way of wrapping your error message, usually. If it's not there, if you're getting an error and it's not there, just console log the error. And let's go see what we get if I say coolest dinosaur taco holders. All right, well, first let's check out the network request we just made. So right here, we made a put request to /items/4. And our preview did not include our new title. That's because we didn't pass in the item we wanted to edit. Thank you. Yeah, Robert's right there. We need to add item as the second argument. So the item we want to edit. Now let's think this through. When I go through this, I set my item. So the item we clicked on is populating the form. Now when I type into any of the fields, it's going to continue to update item. So the item that we're passing in here will have all of the edits that we want to pass down to the API. So for example, if I say coolest dinosaur taco holders, and we go look at this request, well, here's our put. Now we have a payload, a request payload to look at with the updated data. So that means the data that came back, the response that came back, has coolest dinosaur taco holders. We can see that here, request.data, coolest dinosaur taco holders. Nice, so we did it. We successfully made our put request. But look at this. Let's go to our shop. Oh. It didn't work. Why didn't this work? Let's go back to this. Remember, when we click update, we have to update our state in our app.js, in our app component. So we're getting the correct data back here, but index.js doesn't know about that data, right? Let's split this out to the right. So here's index.js items. Here's our update form. We've got our data here. What are we going to do with it? We need to update our items. So how are we going to update our items from this component? How do we update state in a parent component when the new state is in a child component? Pass the state setter down to the child. What state setter? Drill them props. Set item, yes. Okay, so if we, inside app, if we need to update items, then we need to call set items and pass in the new data. So update form inside here needs to call set items. Well, app is the parent of update form, so we can pass this down as a prop. So let's go to our update form route, and let's give it a new prop. Let's call this update items, and we'll call in set items. Then inside update form, we can call props.update items, which we'll call set items, and we'll pass in res.data. Okay, that is, this is, we need to kind of edit this list, right? So we made the put request to update the data on the server. Now the next part we have to do is update state in app to reflect new changes. Okay, so let's try this out. I'm going to, now that we've refreshed, when you refresh, it does work. But let's update this again. Let's take away coolest. And let's say awesomest. Awesomest Dino taco holders. We're going to update, go to our shop. That did not work. Why not? Props.update items. Let's go look at our state. This might just be a refresh problem. What number are you? 4, 0, 1, 2, 3. Should be this one. Yoga Joe's. Coolest. Let's try it again. Let's refresh and see if it went through. Awesomest. Bestest. Okay. So we have bestest here. This is not working. And the dependency in app. This should update our state, set items. Did we pass this down? Edit item. Wait a second, where did, it is a, never fear, it is a code sandbox thing. Update items equals set items. Okay, now it should work. Whew, that was scaring me for a minute. Coolest taco holders. Okay, there's our request. We got coolest, and our shop has coolest. Okay, whew, that did work. Code sandbox scares me sometimes. It's that situation where you know you did the code correctly and then it doesn't work, and then you just question your life for 3 hours. And then you find out that it was a typo or code sandbox, and you're like, oh, I'm good. I did that correctly, right? Okay, the last thing we need to do before we go to break and work on delete request is any kind of UX considerations. I don't like that we just sit here, the dinosaur taco holders. We have no indication that it worked until we route back to shop. So how would you like to handle, this is totally up to you. You get to decide. How would you like to handle the UX here? For UX now, I think we should redirect with props.history.push after we edit. I like it. Are we good with that? Lots of head nods. Show the form in the page. Route back to the shop, sounds good. Okay, let's route back to the shop. So when we get done inside our update form, when we get done with this, if we were successful, then we're gonna say props.history.push. What is our shop page item list? Okay, I like that idea. Let's try it. Let's go back to our shop. Mathematical glasses are going on sale for $5. Perfect. Yes, very good. Good job. Okay, editing, it's not hard, right? It's so hard. Oh man, editing is probably the most complicated flow that you'll see, just because it's so intertwined with everything. All right, let's take a look at questions, and then we'll take a quick break. Would you do an axios with auth so that only the person logged in can edit posts? Yes, absolutely. Usually you want to log in, and usually you want to, you'll give different users different roles. So you'll have an admin role that could edit things or delete things, right? Or add new items. If it's just someone shopping, let's say they log into Amazon, you don't want someone just logging into Amazon as a customer to be able to edit the items they're looking at, right? That has to be an admin role. So yeah, you will have people log in with that login request. You usually send back a user object with a defined role, and then based on that role, you would hide this add item form from just regular customers. You would only be able to access this if the role is correct. Same with editing and deleting. Great question. I like this question too. Would it be a bad idea to have your history.push at the end of handle submit instead of in the .then call? I'm assuming because if the axios.put request failed, you'd still be redirected to the shop. So this is where you get to make a choice. So what the question is why don't we just put this, oops, down here instead of inside the .then? First of all, it depends on how you want to handle your error state. So what I would do is probably have an error message here. So I would click update, and I would expect if this request fails to stay here, so my changes are still there, and then just show the error message in red. Or you might have like pop downs. So you don't even necessarily have to redirect them. You could click update and have a success toast pop down right here. Or snack bar from the bottom. They're different, snack bars and toasts, those different notifications. You could have some kind of notification saying that was successful, or there was an error. So yeah, it really is up to you, and it depends on how you want to handle that error message and informing the user that there was an error. I think more people are used to not being redirected if there's an error. They want to stay on the form and try again. All right, let's do a 3-minute break, and then we'll come back and finish with delete. All right, come back to your computers and let's finish the day. Okay, this flow is going to be similar, but without transferring item data to another component. What we want to do is handle deleting an item from this component here. And we're going to have to do the same flow inside our .then, where we update our items with the response and then route to the shop. So get ready for some Driver Navigator. Your last episode of Driver Navigator right here. Okay, let's see. Yeah, you could definitely do that. That's cool. Good thinking there. All right. So here we are inside item.js, and here's our index.js. What is our first step going to be? Let's do a new thread. Yellow, Driver Navigator. Okay, what's our first step going to be? This is always the hardest one to figure out. What's our first step? Add delete button to an item. Bippity boppity boo, it's there. I'm magical. Okay, we've got our delete button. Let's add an on click. I like it. Okay, let's define a function up here. Let me say handle delete. And of course, we're going to event.prevent default. So let's call handle delete right here. Oh, const. Because we're not in a class. Okay, handle delete. All right, then what? Axios.delete. Yes, axios.delete. The function needs to take in an ID. We could pass in an ID, but we actually have the ID just right here on item.id. So I'm just going to use item.id. So let's go look at our server. Here's our delete /items/ID. So what is our endpoint going to be? Someone write the endpoint here inside axios.delete. What are we passing in here? Localhost 3333/items/item.id. I love it. Localhost :3333/items/item.id. Okay. Now, delete does not take in a body of data. It's just going to delete whatever item is here. So .then we get our res back. We're of course going to console log our res. If we get an error, you console log the error. And let's go push some buttons. Okay, clear this. Let's clear our network. Delete. No network request. Wah, wah. On click, delete, handle delete. Maybe we just need to refresh. Oh, thank you. HTTP:// yes. That's why it didn't work. All right, try this again. Clear our network, clear our console, delete. And we sent a delete request to our server /item/4. So we no longer have dinosaur taco holders. RIP dinosaur taco holders. Okay, so that worked. And our console log, we have res.data has our brand new array. So what is going to be our next step? Update the state. Yes, how do we update the state here? Pass state from the app. not the state, we want our update items function, our set items. So let's find item, let's see, item, it already has update items. Perfect. Oh, don't leave me. Where did everybody go? That was crazy. So item already has update items. Perfect. Well, isn't that convenient? Okay, so we have props.update item. So we're gonna just call props.update item and pass in our data. And then last thing we wanna do, what is our last step? Yes, push history, history.push to the store, props.history.push, and props.update items, thank you, slash item dash list. Okay, let's try it out. Oh, our item with 4 has been deleted. It's not there. Delete, it's gone. Delete, it's gone. Fishing pole campfire roaster, you're gone. Eyeglasses holder, you're gone. Wahaha! Now you know why you give the proper roles to only admins, so someone doesn't go into Amazon and do this. Wahaha! Our items are all gone, but luckily they're just hard-coded into our server, so I can just do that. And they're all back. Whew, okay. All right, cool. Okay, that is our lesson for today, updating and deleting. Now, there are so many different ways to do what we just did today. A lot of it depends on your original architecture for your project. A lot of it depends on how you want to pass different pieces of state around. Even down to, if I go to my network requests and I edit this item and I say the mathematical glasses, what if this only returns the one item? What if your server only returns one item instead of the entire array? What if it only returns the item that you clicked on? Well, when inside your update form, instead of just pushing res.data, you'd have to take the item that was updated, take in your state, props.items, and you'd have to manually update your state with that new item and then push that new updated array. So there's so much that goes into this, depending on how you've set up your app, how the server works, if it's going to return the full array, or maybe just returns an ID, and you have to update your state with item, with what's living in your form. So today's project is set up pretty similar to this trinkets project. The server plays really nice with you. For example, if you make a put request, it is going to send, oh, maybe it doesn't. Let's see. Movies, return movie. Just kidding. This server does not play nice with you. It only sends what you sent to it. It only sends the movie you sent down to it. So you're going to have to update your array manually on state. This one only sends, if you delete an item, it doesn't send back a new array with that item gone. It only sends back the ID of the item you deleted. So you have to manually remove your movie from your state array. Cool, I'm glad it does that, because that makes, this is a little bit more realistic. This is more what you'll see in the real world. Okay, so let's go look at what this project is. You've done you've done the movie project before. So this is just continuing that. You've got part 1 is updating the movie with your put request. So you'll need to create a component with a form to update the chosen movie, and you'll follow the similar steps that we took today. And then the second part is deleting a movie. So add a delete button. When the call comes back successfully, route to the user to /movies, where you will need to update your list. And then if you finish all of that, practice with post requests and styling for your stretch problems today. All right, let's go see if there's any questions. Can you go over how to manually add and remove again, since our project requires that? Yeah, I'll talk through it. I'm not going to show you how to do it, but I'll talk through it. So let's say you just got done editing an item. So here, the res this is why you always console log your res. You need to know what data is sending back. In trinkets, it's sending back the entire array with the updated item. For the project today, you'd probably do something like const new items equals props dot items dot map, and you'll map through all your items on your list, find the item that matches your updated item ID, and update that item in your new items array. And then you'll pass in new items to your updater function. So this is going to be similar logic to toggling to-do items. Okay, that's as much of a hint as I'll give you. Read the movie API. You said we should use the responses to manually update our item. Our state array wouldn't dissociating our state from the server introduce a lot of possible bugs. And shouldn't we just do a new axios.get on the client side upon successful put delete? So you can do that. You could do a new put. Again, it depends on how your project is architected. So we, in the Trinkets app, all of our data or the items data is managed in app. So there's not a way inside app when we're routing from update form to item list. There's not a way to trigger to redo this get call, because app is a parent of both of those components. So we're not actually, what we would do is if you update the response manually in your state, you actually are keeping up to date with what your server has. Your state array will look exactly like what your server has if you update it manually or not, or if you just do a get request. So you should be okay to do that. I'm not worried about getting out of sync with our server data in this situation. But again, if you're doing your get request in items and update and the item, you'd have to completely change your architecture to be able to do this and have your item list managing your state rather than app.js. That's a good question, though. That seems a lot easier, doesn't it? All right. Look at that. We ended on time for our last lesson today. Woohoo! Okay. Good luck this afternoon and tomorrow morning. We'll do one last Q&A tomorrow before your build weeks kick off. And yeah, I will see you then. Thanks for being awesome.